The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
It's time to attack. With the Attack Style Wrestling Podcast. Here on the Attack Style Wrestling Podcast, you'll find youth and high school coaching tips for coaches, parents, and wrestlers, featuring Gable-trained NCAA champion and Hall of Fame high school coach Daryl Weber. Also featured is a monthly dialogue with legendary wrestling coach Dan Gable. Find out more on AttackStyleWrestling.com. Now, on to the show. Now up on the Attack Style Wrestling Podcast, joined as always by the founder of Attack Style Wrestling, NCAA wrestling champion, and Hall of Fame high school coach Daryl Weber. Our guest today, guy that knows a little something about wrestling, the U.S. National Greco-Roman coach, joining us from Colorado Springs, Matt Lindland. First of all, Daryl, today we're talking about Greco-Roman, we're talking about grassroots, and who better to talk about this with than the guy that's kind of leading our Olympians into battle in Greco-Roman wrestling?
Yeah, I've talked to Coach Lindland here and there, and I know he's fired up about his position and the kids he's got coming up, and just always interested to talk with high level coaches, that are kind of in charge of where the USA Wrestling is going, and hear their kind of game plan from top to bottom. I'm sure he's got insights and game plans for the national level guys, the up and coming guys, and the grassroots. And I just think it'd be interesting to hear what he's got to say and where he's going.
Yeah, as Matt's bustling into the office at USA Wrestling, we were supposed to schedule this earlier. If you're just picking us up, and it might be months away, or this being content that you can listen to at any time. We were supposed to get Matt coming down, but the guy wants to stay in shape, so he was coming down the Manitou Incline, the bar trail. It's that giant mountain in Manitou Springs with old railroad ties. It's basically one of the central training points. I myself never have made it up there, but Matt was coming down. We wanted to make sure he was calm in the breath, so we had to do this one here. But Matt, when it comes to putting a system together that goes from the grassroots to the senior level, what is the role you have in trying to outline that, not just for USA Wrestling, but for the country as a whole, for people that may not even be members of USA Wrestling yet?
Well, I think you said it right. It's a system, and it's finding the coaches out there that are passionate about the style of Greco-Roman, that teach Greco-Roman specifically, and getting them to share their knowledge not just with their athletes, but having joint training camps so they can share that knowledge with other coaches and they can work together. So building a network where we can do regional training camps all over the country with the different club systems. That's how I want to try to attack this, and putting that together. I've got a few camps going on this spring. Well, I'll be attending myself, but I can't be everywhere. So it is building a network of good quality club coaches all across the country and centralizing those regionally.
When we talk about the term grassroots, in some cases, people think of that as the youth wrestling. Anything, middle school, high school, and below, that's the grassroots. In Greco-Roman, we've had to kind of look at grassroots a little differently. Is the approach now that we can finally start using the term grassroots to its true nature with Greco-Roman wrestling, as we've got the Olympic training site at Northern Michigan. Williams Baptist has started the first collegiate Greco-only wrestling program. And then we've got the developmental athletes coming out to the training center as high school seniors. I mean, can we finally get to the true meaning of grassroots when it comes to Greco-Roman wrestling?
Well, I think so. We've also got a proposal in to the USOC to help us with some funding. And, obviously we can't rely just on the USOC support. We've got to raise outside money, and that's always a challenge. And, I'm looking to bring in more and more athletes. And when we say, we kind of tend to refer to these athletes as developmental, because they're 17, 18, 19-year-old athletes, and they're on junior world teams. But some of these same athletes are also won our senior nationals, and so I mean. It's a challenge because you're saying the language that's been used is developmental athletes. And so you say, well, these are also our senior athletes. So you do something like an accelerated developmental program. But, we want to get more and more of these athletes out here at a younger age. I think, we see what's happening in the world. We see the guys that can win world medals, Olympic medals, 18, 19, 20 years old, and some of our very best athletes in our country that are wrestlers are competing in a folk style age group system, which is a developmental system, but it doesn't really matriculate into Greco. I mean, what I see athletes that spend 4 or 5 years in a folk style college system. They feel a lot more comfortable making a transition into freestyle. We've had some really talented athletes make our junior and our cadet world teams, and then we end up losing them to a folk style system. And so the goal for me is to keep these athletes in our Greco system, and it's a challenge, but you see the parents that want to get these athletes, educations and colleges. But we're capable of doing that. Guys that have made that sacrifice, a guy like Tracy Hancock, who was a world medalist for us last year in France at the junior level. He just won our senior nationals. He just got himself a $75,000 scholarship, which is 4-year full ride scholarship to Daymar College. So we understand we're not just developing the wrestler. We've got to develop the individual and help them reach their human potential as well as their athletic potential.
Yeah, I hear you, Coach. I mean, I know it's got to be, this is something Greco and freestyle, even Greco more so, has struggled with for years. It's kind of cracking that code to get your hooks in kids at younger ages and then keep them developing. And I think I know it's probably extremely frustrating for you to kind of infiltrate the lower levels because of it's a folk style country, and you talking about I think I was talking to you on the phone a while back, and you just said, hey, I'm just trying to find the folk, obviously if you're in wrestling you're probably involved in folk style, but finding those guys that are really fired up on Greco and really turning out the Greco junior and cadet All-Americans and champs, and that's how you're kind of cracking into that lower tier, younger age group. Is that not right?
That's exactly the model, is finding the young athletes that are just passionate about the sport of Greco-Roman, and that's what they want to do. But I hear it all the time. Oh, this is what I love and this is what I want to do. But at the end of the day, they still end up finding themselves in a collegiate system. I could take, for example, a couple of guys that were on my team last year, the junior team, Reenan and Rogers. Both of those guys, I think, are much more passionate about international style wrestling. Nick wrestles a lot of freestyle and Greco, and he's very talented at both. Ended up going to a folk style system. Rogers, who's very passionate about Greco, loves Greco, stuck in a folk style system. And, they feel like, well, we can do this after season, we can do this preseason. But you got guys that are training full time that are going to pass them up very quickly.
In other countries and in the U.S., you're saying?
Well, certainly in other countries, because they don't train anything other than international style wrestling. Right. But if I can find the athletes here, I'd look to guys like that have had success. They've been on world teams. Those are guys that are easy. Those are easy markers to say, yeah, this guy should be competing in an international system, but I'll take a second or a third tier guy that's passionate about it and going to commit his time, and we can develop them.
Matt, one thing I'm curious about is your take on this year in 2017. USA Wrestling Cadet and Junior Nationals are inverting its schedule, and we're not talking about the women here because their schedule doesn't change much, but freestyle's going first. Greco will finish things out. From where do you see? I see a couple different benefits and maybe a couple different concerns about this, but from where you sit and looking at the grassroots, and Fargo is really the discovery point for a lot of these athletes. What do you think about the schedule change moving Greco towards the end of the tournament?
Well, you're talking about the Fargo Junior Nationals. That's not our qualifier. That's not our world team trials for the junior age groups. So right there we have a problem. You're talking Juniors, I'm talking juniors, we're talking completely different language. I'm talking about UWW junior age. You're talking about high school junior age. So right there, fundamentally, we have a problem to begin with. And you have a lot of athletes that, yeah, that's a great place for them to start, get exposed to international style wrestling, but that's not the end all be all. The end all be all is getting on a world team and competing internationally overseas, and hoping that these athletes can find a way to on the podium, at the world stage. But what do I think about them switching freestyle first? I think there's a lot of theories to that. We'll see how it works. That's decided by coaches council here within USA Wrestling. There's a coaches council, and they made that decision. Now, did they make that decision because they think more athletes are going to stick around and wrestle Greco? That's what I was told that decision was based on. Well, you have all these athletes that didn't potentially reach their results, and now they want to have a second chance, and that's what Greco would be about. They would take that those next few days after the cadets, and they would try the Greco-Roman. So I'm all excited about more athletes trying it and getting exposed to it for sure, but I don't think they're going to have the success that they're hoping unless they're training in that sport specifically.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that because that's one thing. I can see the positive and negative on that. So let's say you got John Q. Stud. Oh man, in a buzzsaw bracket, he's good in both styles. Thinks in a traditional year, okay, I think I got a better shot. Let me not get beat up in Greco so I can concentrate on winning freestyle. Well, now you might have a bunch of kids go 1-2, 2-2, and be like, wait a minute, I spent all this money to come out. I'm going to keep wrestling. So that's one way to maybe draw people into Greco. So you get another opportunity, and they may discover that they're good at it. The alternative is I'm going to use one of Daryl's kids as an example, or the kid he used to coach at Christiansburg, a kid named Hunter Bolin, one of the top-ranked seniors in the country. When he first got to Fargo, when he was a little guy, the staff was talking about how good he's going to do in Greco. And then when he started getting bigger and started having national success, he's focusing on freestyle. I think he was 3rd or 4th in freestyle last year. We kind of lost his ability in Greco because he stopped wrestling it anymore. So, Daryl, from a coaching perspective, where do you think this change could do and maybe filling in the opportunities for kids to discover Greco instead of them worried about getting beat up for freestyle?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely had to factor things in when you had, because kids go out to Fargo and kids get college scholarships. They really and they get themselves set up for better seeding at big tournaments the following year. So you got to factor things in, and sometimes at the cadet level, you could take somebody out if you got a really good kid at the cadet level, and say he wrestles both styles, he's probably going to blow through 75% of his competition and have a couple tough matches. And so when he gets to freestyle, he's going to be pretty fresh. Now, if you got a kid that you think can win freestyle junior nationals, or be an All-American and really put himself on the map, it's a different beast. You go into the junior bracket in both styles, you could have 8 barn burners and just be beat to crap come freestyle. So with that thinking, I could see it possibly getting more kids to wrestle Greco because they're not saving themselves to really put themselves on the map with colleges and stuff like that for the freestyle tournament. And that's just how people think. I know that that's just how people think. They're more apt to put them in both styles. At the cadet level and at the junior level, people start weighing different factors in there.
Well, I think Dale made a great point that, a lot of these guys are wrestling in these tournaments to get exposed to the colleges. They want to wrestle to earn a scholarship into a 4-year school, which makes a lot of sense, but if we're looking at guys that truly have different goal sets, they're looking to, get on the world stage and compete at Olympics or world championships for the United States, they're a completely different mindset, So I think it all comes down to their coaches. I mean, if the coaches have a goal of, just them getting exposed to seeing colleges and they're not looking beyond anything past high school or college even, that makes a lot of sense. But if you have athletes that have bigger aspirations, bigger goals, I think they got to look at different opportunities and different options. And that's I think how I started this conversation was I'm looking for guys that are passionate about wrestling Greco-Roman. That's where they want to be successful. And I think at the time you're a first-year junior, at least, maybe even as early as a cadet, you could start focusing on a specific style and really accelerate your wrestling skills.
And that's where I see what you're talking about, Matt, kind of plugging in with these maybe high school level coaches that are passionate about Greco, because I mean, those young kids that maybe do have what it takes to take the Greco path or have a lot of success there, they're probably going to get influenced in that direction more by their coach, their local coach, than anybody else. So for you to kind of broaden the swath of and bring more, throw more people at the wall, and by tapping into that lower level, I think that's a great first step. And when I came from college and went to coach in high school, I kind of came in, I didn't know a lot of Greco. And then I started to get, and so I didn't really push guys. Like if they wanted to wrestle it, they could. And then I got involved with Virginia USA Wrestling, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to try to do as much as I can to get, people wrestling Greco, because I saw people that were passionate about Greco and just try to help the cause out. And then once then I realized, hey, there's just a lot of folk style stuff that can cross over and work great. And it makes your guys, if you make them wrestle Greco and they're competitive, they get a lot tougher. I mean, because they learn how to hand fight and just battle and bang for those underhooks and Russian ties and how to clear those things and attack the body, work your front. It really crossed over good to freestyle and folk style as well.
Well, and again, I think those are different goals. Like we can use Greco-Roman skills and tactics and techniques to improve our other styles. We see how well the Iranians use their tie-ups and controls. In freestyle, they're phenomenal with that. A lot of the Russians are digging underhooks and getting their push-outs and, scooping around on those single legs off of the underhooks. So, yeah, you can use those skill sets to improve your other styles, but I'm talking specifically about using those skill sets to develop a Greco-Roman athlete. And so I have conflicting goals with a lot of the people out in the country, but I'm not looking for every athlete to switch over to Greco. I'm just looking for the guys that's what they're passionate about, that's what they want to do, and to help them pursue those goals. And I think it all starts out with what we talked about, is finding some of those coaches out there that are coaching clubs, they're coaching high schools, but they're really passionate about Greco. And you see it in the way their athletes wrestle. They're controlling the tie-ups, they're pushing their guy back, they're a lot more physically, fighting their opponents, within those tie-ups and using those to set up their takedowns. I'm watching Jacob Casper this year really have a great career. He spent a year with us out here at the training center last year in his redshirt year, and he used the year of training Greco to help him accelerate in his folk style. Now hopefully we get him back and he wants to continue wrestling Greco because that's where his passion is. But he's in the middle of that college season and he's committed to Duke, and we understand that, and we're hoping that we get him back. But at the end of the day, I would rather not lose a guy for 4 or 5 years. I'd rather keep him in that path, and maybe in that 4 or 5 years he can get on the podium at the world level instead of the NCAA podium.
Yeah, Matt, my question now is we get those kids. So let's use some examples. You've mentioned Tracy Hancock. We've got Kamal Bay, who people remember from dropping bombs on people in Fargo. And then there's a kid out of Tennessee, Tommy Brackett, who's been out there training down in Arkansas with Kerry Regner at Williams Baptist. So we get kids. Say if we can get, if it's 1 or 2 a year weight class, is that insufficient to supplement the people that are coming over from Greco, that we've got, the 16, 17-year-old kid that realizes, okay, this is what I'm going to do, whether they go to the training center, whether they go to Williams, whether they go to Northern, or 2-3 of those developmental athletes, or in that case, developmental, before they get to the senior level. Is that enough to really help kickstart the depth to create real competition in this country at the senior level?
Well, we got to start somewhere. and one college program as Russell's folk style is great, but, having a second one's even better, so, we've doubled our numbers already with one college program and bringing athletes out here, like you said, Bracken, Tommy, he'll probably find his way out here next year as a senior in high school. Nick Boykin's coming out in February to move out here full time. And these are great athletes that would get recruited to NCAA schools because they're good wrestlers. They're good, physically capable athletes that could go out and perform at any style. But right now I see a passion for Greco, so I'm going to try to get them in a program to where they can follow their passion.
I want to talk about something Daryl pointed out about when he came to Virginia, and there's a pocket of Greco coaches here. Rob Prebish, Steve Bedricki was there for a while, and guys that were working. Roy Hill had some guys from the Marine Corps that were in his club working Greco, as well as some Marines. But where does Matt Lindland, national team coach, look for those type of kids, the Tommy Brackett type kids, the Kamal Bays, the Tracy Hancocks? I mean, how much is it based on the relationship with coaches that that are Greco specialists, like a Rob Prebish?
Well, I mean, I think you find these guys like Tommy Brackett doesn't really have any coaching. That's why he started going down and training in Arkansas with Kerry Regner. He found his way to the Greco-Roman, and he loves it. He's had some success. He even won a couple matches this year at the Senior Nationals, which was very impressive. Beat C.J. Myers his first round. C.J.'s been in the finals of the World Team Trials before. So, I mean, wow, that's impressive that you got a 17-year-old athlete that is able to compete with veterans in the sport. But, yeah, most of my guys are going to come from, the coaches, the relationships with these different coaches. And that's why we got to continue to build that network and start having these coaches share that information, share that knowledge, get the athletes together so they're training together, whether they're Minnesota and Wisconsin guys or Iowa and Nebraska guys training together. But we got to create small regional training sites and hold mini camps for them more frequently, because we've got some really good Greco coaches in this country that's what they want to teach, and they feel like, well, I got to teach this other stuff because there's just not enough opportunities and there's not enough athletes that want to do this. And so they're starting to grow those numbers, and they're going to get more, invested in Greco-Roman. They're going to be more immersed in that sport. You got guys like Lucas Steld up in Wisconsin who trains Greco year round. Some of those guys, we just had Alston Nutter, who was a junior in high school this year, moved up to Marquette, Michigan, to be a part of the Olympic training site up there in Marquette with the senior and junior level athletes up there. So we're making inroads. It's one athlete at a time kind of deal right now, and at some point, hopefully, there'll be critical mass, and we'll have a lot more athletes. But it's got to start somewhere, Jason.
Yeah, I think, and like I was saying, I was trying to allude to the fact earlier that to get the numbers up and get more people kind of to surface up. I think it's great that you're making contacts with those people that are really into Greco. And then I'm here to say, as a high school coach who really, when I first started, wasn't that into Greco. After I started making my guys do it, there's huge benefits. So then, if you can get everybody to kind of, get their guys in the off season dipping their toe in the water, and you've got those kind of those assistant coach type guys down the trenches for you. They could be at those tournaments, the state tournaments, the regional tournaments, pumping those guys up and trying to bring them into your pool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a 17-year-old athlete right here from Florida that came out to our senior camp. He was able to miss a couple of weeks of school. He's a good student, and he's looking to get one of those opportunities next year to move out to Colorado Springs and be a part of that developmental system that'll train right alongside of our senior guys. But a lot of those senior guys, like I said, are also still junior eligible. You have Kamal Bay, who's got 2 more years of junior eligibility, and currently he's one of our top seniors. And Tracy Hancock, who's got another year of junior eligibility this year to wrestle in the World Championship. So I've got a whole new set of problems. You got guys that could make junior world teams, and then 2 weeks later they could be on a senior world team. That's not a bad problem. It's just a problem we gotta figure out how to peak those guys properly.
Yeah, man. And I want to go back to the guys that you've got there in the room now. From that, where we're using that term developmental, how key is it in a wrestler's growth with technique and ability is the 17, 18-year-old range? We've got kids, Kamal Bay, people were on the Illinois message boards wondering why he wasn't going to try to help his high school win another state title when, it was almost like he was being criticized for putting his Olympic aspirations in his life in front of, high school aspirations. And we're looking at Tracy Hancock, who I believe his best finish in Colorado was 4th in the state. A local kid out of Fountain Fort Carson. The developmental from Hancock going from state place winner to, world level junior wrestler and top guy in the senior level. How key are these years, the junior and senior high school years, to a senior level career in Greco-Roman wrestling?
I think they're absolutely critical, and not that you can't convert a guy that's wrestled in a folk style system, but it's going to take at least 2 years to develop that athlete once he leaves a folk style system, and that ends. That sport ends when you're out of college. No, there's no more. If you want to continue wrestling, you need to pick a style, which is freestyle or Greco. And if you're spending those 4 years, doing something entirely different, we still gotta make adjustments when you make that transfer of skills. And once that happens, it's still going to take a couple of years. It's taken a couple of years with Kamal and Tracy here, and Kamal got out here last year when he was in high school. He's in the room part-time. He got in the room full-time in August. And we're seeing, what's happening with these athletes. They're making the adjustments. But I think more importantly is the international competition and training, because we wrestle completely different domestically. You'll see it at Fargo. That doesn't even look like Greco-Roman. When you see athletes in Fargo, they're bent over, they're in a freestyle stance, they're just not grabbing legs, but they're not applying proper pressure and using their body and getting their hips underneath them and attacking. They're bent over and they're making a lot of mistakes. So if you could grab those guys and fix their position first, focus on the fundamental stuff. Like a guy like Kamal, he's such a creative, explosive athlete. I mean, he's a real artist out there. There are certain things I'm like, how did you do that? Like, show me what you just did. And he shows me so fast I can't even figure it out anyway. But the challenge is to keep his body in the proper position so he can hit those attacks at any moment. But if he's out of position, he can't score. And so just really focusing him on fundamental stuff. Where's your head? Where's your hips? Are your elbows in? Are you reaching? Those type of things. And then once an opportunity presents itself out there, he's able to attack and he's already in the right position to score. So it's really focusing on those fundamental skills for these guys.
Daryl, I want to throw this at you as from a high school coaching perspective and your experiences. How would you have approached, say, let's use Joey Dance as an example, a guy that's ranked number 2 in the country in the college level, 125 pounds. Now, former junior world teamer, was on the junior world team in 2012. Now, he was a freestyler, but let's use the senior level as an example. So say he's before his senior year. He's going to be a 4-time state champion. He's won everything there is to win in wrestling. He comes to you and says, Coach, I want to forego my senior year. I want to go to the Olympic Training Center. How do you think most coaches handle that question? And 2, how would you think you would have handled that situation where you're like, I got this guy who's going to help me win a state title as a team, but he wants to concentrate in the Olympics now. And I'm like, wait, we got things to do here.
I mean, I think initially, any coach is going to be taken aback, but you got to. I honestly would look, is this the best thing for him? If Joey Dance would have came to me and been dead serious and know he was like 100% going to train for freestyle maybe, and he was beating all the top guys, and he said, Coach, I got to go to the Olympic Training Center. This is a goal. Olympics are in 2 years. I really want to be an Olympian. And I knew the kid's background, and I knew how he lived, and this was a real thing. I would be 100% for it if it was, if I felt like it was the best thing for them. So, I mean, I think, any high school coach, if they're, trying to win a team title and stuff like that, you're going to be probably hesitant at first. But, I think if you take a good look at it and it's the absolute best thing for the future of this kid, then you gotta do what's best for the kid in any circumstance like that.
Matt, what's your advice to a high school coach who you've got an eye on a kid and you say he should be with us his senior year? I mean, how do you approach that conversation, or what do you say to the high school coach who, this may be the cog in their first ever team state championship, and you might get, well, why can't he wait 6 months until after the season? I mean, there's a bunch of things that will probably come up when having this hypothetical conversation.
Well, it's definitely a hypothetical conversation, but it's things that happen. I mean, I would love to have Colton Schultz in our program right now. He's a sophomore in high school. But he wants to, compete with his brother as a senior in high school this year. And maybe hopefully next year we'll get him as a junior. I think you just got to be patient. And I think what Daryl said, what's best for the athlete, and that's what the coach's job is to, help the athlete. And
I think you'd have to also
what are his goals? If his goals are to win an Olympic medal, then we can't keep him in a folk style system and think that's gonna be the best path for him. We got to switch the system. We got to get him international training, international competition, and he's got to get in the right training environment full time. I've seen it year after year, and we've seen guys that have tried to do this within the college systems, and it's very difficult to train and compete, within a college folk style system, whether it's high school age or college age athletes. You're having the same problem, and you got to have athletes that know what they want to do. And if they don't know what they want to do, well, then they should stick around and figure it out, stick around with their high school. But if that was a realistic option for an athlete, I mean, that wasn't even an option for me at high school or in college. It was till after I graduated from college that became a real option. And that was what my desires were. So I did find myself to the Olympic Training Center and became a resident athlete.
And that's where you can see, the country's moving in a direction because, like you said, those opportunities weren't even there. I don't even think the Olympic Training Center was up and running until, I was in college, or we were in college or shortly thereafter. Nobody even did that, but now
right, that opportunity I wasn't good enough, and the opportunity wasn't even available.
Yeah,
and I was one of the first resident athletes out here.
Yeah,
and I spent
now
3.5 years here.
Yeah, and now you do have kids, going, with the, I don't know how much the regional training facilities help Greco, but it seems to help Freestyle. You've got these younger guys that are able to, in high school, to go to these regional training facilities and wrestle with the older guys and maybe prepare them for the Olympic level. Do you feel like that, like the regional training facilities that the college hosts, do you think those help the Greco at all, or mainly Freestyle?
Well, we only have one that's doing that. That's part of a college system.
Everything else. All of them.
Everything else is Freestyle.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
So does that? No. It helps Freestyle for sure. It helps start to get these guys in the right path for the Freestyle pipeline a lot faster. But right now, there's just not enough clubs out there that have that opportunity, and we need to create that. We need to show that it's working in Cornell, and then once it works there, other coaches are going to want to include Greco in their program. But we got to show that it's going to work out there, and we just started that a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so things are expanding. It's just a slow process, and it's a folk style country, and it's a hard nut to crack for somebody like you. You can tell you're passionate about it, and you got a plan, and that's what it takes is somebody like that to move the needle.
Absolutely, you got to have a plan in place. You got to believe in it, and you got to just keep moving forward. And we're not going to see see this full on, happen. I'm only looking for 3% of the whole country that wrestle to actually focus on Greco-Roman. I think with 3%, it was a number that was capable of winning us the American Revolution. So I thought that would be a good number. But there's hundreds of thousands of athletes out there that are wrestling in our country. And if I can get 3% of those guys to focus on Greco-Roman, I know we can be the best team in the world, because we do have a great system within this country. There's junior high wrestling, there's club wrestling, there's high school wrestling, there's college wrestling, but they're doing the wrong style for what we need to do.
So obviously you got your hooks in, a handful of coaches at the high school, that level across the country. What would you say to a coach who, isn't in the Greco circle, but just has a phenomenal athlete, a phenomenal wrestler? He goes to their states and their regions, or maybe he's placed at Fargo, and he sees that he's got some potential in this style more so than any other one. What's that coach do? How's he get him on the right track, or how's he get in communication with you, or what's the plan there?
Well, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. My email's on the USA Wrestling website. I'm on Twitter, but get a hold of me as far as that goes. But really, what I would do is I would try to have him, connect with one of these coaches in that region that's already training. Where's he at? That hypothetical athlete we're talking about.
Yeah.
What region does he live in? That's who I'm going to connect him with. Maybe it's an hour drive. Maybe it's right around the corner and he just doesn't know it. But there are coaches out there that
How do they find those coaches? How do they get connected with the local, the closest thing where they can go and sharpen their skills in Greco?
Well, contact me if you're that athlete that you want to find a club in your area, in your region that's training Greco-Roman. Contact me, and get yourself on, to where you're winning, junior trials and making teams, and then we'll take that next step, which would be, getting you into, Williams Baptist or Northern Michigan or possibly Colorado Springs. There's not a ton of places for these younger athletes to develop in. Some of our senior level clubs like New York AC and Minnesota Storm, they're really working with senior level athletes. But even like at the Storm, you see Brandon Paulson out there. He's got the Pinnacle Club, and hopefully some of those guys will, matriculate into the Greco program. It's been hard because the tradition, I've seen guys like Jake Alar, who's a phenomenal Greco wrestler, stopped wrestling Greco, his junior year in high school, and just focused himself on freestyle so he could get recruited to colleges. And, if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. But there's other guys that potentially want to wrestle Greco, and they need to stay that path. But there's a lot of pressure from, like you said, what about the guy that wants you to help him win the state title, or the guy that's telling you got to go wrestle college because that's the path, that's the way it was done for the last 100 years. Everybody's done that. Gable did it. He wrestled in college, and look how much success he had. And look at Kale. Look how much success he had. But could they have had that success maybe 4 years earlier? Potentially. Could they have gone another quad because their body's not broken down and beat up from the collegiate grind and the 40 matches a year? Yeah, potentially. But they got to make that decision on their own. I can't force somebody to make that decision, and I don't want to force anybody to make that decision. I want somebody that's passionate about it, and this is what they want, and I'm going to help them achieve their goals.
Last question I got for you, Matt, as we look at the 2017 calendar, the Junior World Championships, Tampere, Finland, the Cadet World Championships, Athens, Greece, two really diverse places for kids to get the opportunity to travel to before they're at the senior level. What have you seen from kids that jump levels from the time that they make that first world team? If they're a cadet, they go in and then all of a sudden, they have a good tournament, they make the team, and then boom, they're on another level. How frequently do you see kids accelerate in their ability after making a world team or after being on a Pan Am team that travels internationally?
Well, I mean, we see that with a guy like Taylor Lamont. I mean, he was making cadet teams. I think he made 3 cadet teams, never got himself a world medal his first year at the juniors. And that's even more difficult when you take that level, you level up from cadets to juniors. A lot of those junior athletes are capable of really medaling in the senior level. Those same athletes that you see on the podium at the juniors, they're more than capable of medaling at the senior level. But stick with it is my advice. Look at Taylor. He didn't get a medal three tries at cadets. His first try at junior level, he did. Now he's got 2 more years that he can wrestle junior level. And he's got a unique situation because he's trying to do the folk style while he's really focusing on Greco. It's a very unique situation. It's not the ideal situation in my opinion, but it works for him, and we're going to support it. We're going to help him any way we can, and that's keep doing it. Stick with it. That would be my advice, Jason.
Daryl, final thoughts as we wrap up this grassroots episode of Attack Style Wrestling, talking Greco-Roman.
Yeah, I just wanted to get Matt on here and kind of hear his game plan and see where where he thought things were going. And this time of year, the high school seasons are heading into their postseason. Off season is going to be coming up, and just I like to give awareness to Greco and get as many people as involved out there as possible, because I think from a high school coach perspective, once I got my guys, and I basically started forcing them to when we went to tournaments that had freestyle and Greco to do both styles. I really saw, a level jump in their wrestling overall. So just to let people know, from somebody that was in the trenches and really wasn't a big Greco guy to begin with, once I kind of switched over and said I was going to start doing it, I saw huge benefits, and hopefully that can, help Matt's cause and get more people at the lower levels, at the high school level and junior high level, to dip their toe in there and just broaden the pool for him.
Find success and find a passion for the sport, for sure. I mean, there's definitely been a trend since I left the sport of wrestling and got back in as a national coach. I certainly saw a trend of more folk style opportunities, not just during the months that we call the wrestling season, but throughout the summer. And do you feel like keeping your athletes in a folk style system, if that's their goals year round, would benefit them or more? Or do you think exposing them to the different styles is a bigger benefit?
Absolutely not. I believe that it's a huge benefit once season's over for multiple reasons, at least through that spring, to get them wrestling freestyle and Greco. Number one, for the Olympic cause for the country, to get as many kids in there. I think the kids, it's fresh. It's just a different style. I don't think it's as much of a grind as folk style, so the kids kind of like it. Obviously, sometimes you'll get them bucking the system, but every time a kid told me, well, I'm not wrestling this off season because I don't like freestyle and Greco, I could always see through it. They just didn't want to wrestle in the off season. That's all it was. So kids usually have more fun. They stay more engaged. So I like to change. I think it's a necessity. If you want to have a high level program, I think it's a necessity to break into freestyle and Greco. And then, you gotta balance the whole, how much they're committing in the off season as to how dedicated they are. And then, once summer hits, your high level guys, they need to get to the national duels, the out to Fargo to keep sharp and compete against the best guys. And, maybe your kind of beginners and your middle ground guys, then maybe they're hitting up a camp or something like that. But to do folk style all year long, I think you're doing a disservice to USA Wrestling, and I think you're doing a disservice to your athletes. They don't develop as well. And you can talk to just about any high level high school coach or people that have been around a long time, and I think they would agree.
Well, I agree with that philosophy, and a couple of things that stuck out was you said they like it more. They're more engaged. They're having fun. I mean, those are the type of things that you want your athletes to do. If you're going to try to develop them, you want them to enjoy it. If they don't enjoy it, you're going to lose them anyway. If they're not engaged and having fun while they're doing it, then it is just the grind. And there's no sense in doing that if you don't love it. But why do you think that there's been such a movement, and how have our freestyle and Greco tournaments gotten smaller and these folk style programs grown? If you would say most high school coaches would agree, that's my question. I don't know.
High level coaches, I think, do agree. They're the same coaches you see in Fargo every single year. They're probably the same coaches that are battling for state titles every single year in their states. I think that, and this was a battle, when I got involved with Virginia USA Wrestling, it's like, hey, how do we grow our numbers? A bigger percentage of high school coaches out there, or a large percentage, just aren't comfortable or don't feel knowledgeable in freestyle and Greco, so they just find what feels comfortable to them. And I think, I always felt like we tried many, many ways to get more people involved. And I always felt the best way is to get people, just like you're doing from the top level. You're finding people that are passionate about Greco at the lower level. We had to get the people that we knew were going to hit the freestyle and Greco circuit in the off season. And we had to try to get them to get either surrounding coaches around them to jump on board. Hey, come over and train with us, or at least get if those coaches weren't doing anything in the off season, at least get the high level athletes coming over to their clubs and keep them involved and get them to the freestyle and Greco. But I think it's a comfort level, and people, and then, then you get, you just get people that want to make, want to put tournaments on and put big tournaments on in the summer and make money, and they're appealing to the masses. So they try to draw people in with folk style. But I'm a firm believer that you're dropping the ball if you're not putting them on some kind of, Olympic level, Olympic style circuit in the off season as a high school coach.
Well, I appreciate that because that's similar to my philosophy. I mean, I just remember that, the high school coaches would put so much pressure on the athletes when I was a younger athlete that, this is like the end all be all. If you don't win the state title, how could you ever expect to have any success? And then when I went to my club, my coach never talked about winning state titles. All he ever talked about was winning at the world and Olympic level. And all we did was international style wrestling, and consequently, two of the national team coaches right now are out of that club, Bill and myself, we both grew up in that same club. So it's kind of ironic that it works out that way, that the coaches and the athletes that are having the most success are the ones that are pushing the international styles. But at the same token, you've got the numbers, the masses, as you put it, that are still doing the folk style. So yeah, I guess my focus just needs to be on the guys that are doing the international style and help them find that path and that next step for them.
Definitely. And I think like I said, I think you're doing the right thing by tapping into those really passionate people, and then hopefully they can get more people that are kind of on the fence, just involved at the local and regional tournaments. And, it's just that's, from an outsider's point or perspective, I can see the growth, the needle slowly moving and more opportunities for kids. But it's just, it's got to be really hard and frustrating for somebody that's in charge of the development of Greco-Roman within, the United States system, which is, just buried, is entrenched in folk style and the mentality, which you're talking about.
It is hard. It is hard. And there are frustrating moments, but so was, getting on the podium at the Olympic Games was hard, and there was frustrating moments. And, I was capable of doing that. And I feel more than capable of being able to get this team where we need to be, which is the best team in the world.
Amen, brother. That's why I wanted to get you on here and just hear your game plan and get it out there.
Well, I appreciate it, Daryl. Thank you very much. And Jason, always a pleasure.
Yeah, man, that'll wrap up this episode of the Attack Style Wrestling Podcast with Olympic silver medalist and U.S. Greco-Roman national team coach Matt Lindland. And as always, Daryl Weber. Check us out on attackstylewrestling.com.
show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.